Most of the world watched that terrifying ordeal and the rescue, thank goodness, right, of those 33 miners trapped underground in Chile for 69 days. And CNN's all-platform journalist Patrick Oppmann was one of the first reporters on the scene very, very early on in that time frame. He is back, fresh off a flight yesterday, sir, to share these compelling stories behind, really, the stories behind the stories. And being a reporter, this is the stuff I love, and I think some of our viewers do as well. Patrick Oppmann.
Thank
Bravo.
you.
Job well done, friend.
Nice to be
So
home.
you're home, but let's take me back to when you first got down there. You spent 43 days basically in the desert. Assignment of a lifetime.
The assignment of a lifetime, but one of the most inhospitable places you can imagine. Chile's Atacama Desert. There's no reason to be there, except in this case for this story. And everything has to be brought in. I was telling you earlier, if anything breaks, we have all this high-tech stuff. If it goes down, good luck. But we toughed it out. A lot of other people came in at the end, swapping off our great colleague, Carl Penhall.
Yep, there he was in the picture.
And we didn't really know what we were in for, but it turned out to be a story that really kind of connected so many people across the world.
So for a little while, you were flying solo. ¿Hablas español?
¿Cómo usted? ¿Cómo usted? Usted habla muy bien, claro.
Gracias. And what was it like condition-wise, I mean, where would you sleep? How were you eating in between live shots? What was that like?
If you had a late night, sometimes you'd sleep in the car, which I did because it was this dangerous mining road. It's not a road that anyone ever traveled on unless they were a miner. And so there were no lights, there were no guardrails, you kind of went by the cliffs. And we all had to put up with that. There were 17 journalists that got in really bad car accidents. We learn in our classes that car accidents are the most dangerous things that can happen to a journalist overseas. So you had to really be careful with that. Sometimes there wasn't food. You can only eat so many days of cereal bars.
But I guess we shouldn't be complaining about what you're not eating because we think about the 33 down below, and that was unbelievable. What
they had to go through, and certainly their family members, and their family members were so kind, Brooke. There were days that they would say, come over, I'm going to cook for you. You haven't been eating. And you think, but everything that you're experiencing right now, how can you be giving to me? But that's just how the Chilean people are, and they are wonderful. And
so there's a little something that happened, I'm being facetious. There was an earthquake. I didn't know about it. It wasn't really broadly reported. There was an earthquake down there. You were on the 10th floor of some building. What were the miners experiencing?
We're told that where they were, it wasn't so bad. This is an earthquake zone. This is not that far from where the terrible earthquakes happened earlier on this year, and people were absolutely devastated. But, on the mine site, they did feel a bit of a tremor. Up in a 10-story building, I was editing, it was late at night, and all of a sudden, it's just a very weird feeling. You get in the doorway, and, I had asked the officials there, are they safe in the mine? And we told her, yes, it's very secure. Well, of course, it turned out it wasn't very secure, and that mine collapse was continuing all along.
And the mines in Spanish, what were they saying? How did they do, the miners, they described it as though it was crying in Spanish.
Mining people from covering the Upper Big Branch disaster in West Virginia, there is a poetry to miners, and they said, La mina está llorando, tiene lágrimas. And it's crying. The mine is weeping. And
because it was crumbling, down on it.
The tears were actual rocks falling, and that happened throughout it, and we're told the last day was one of the worst days, and so that's why these guys said, get us out quickly. It really came down to, perhaps a matter of days before something terrible could have happened.
It's unbelievable. Nobody knew about that.
They got them out.
Oh, thank goodness. Let's roll over, Robert. Let's spin around because I have a bunch of questions from our fans on Twitter, and this question is an excellent one. Is the Chile government going to display the capsule, the Phoenix capsule, in a museum? And is there a known book or movie in the making, sir reporter?
Yes, there are multiple books we're hearing about. There's a Chilean movie that'll probably come out sooner. There's rumors about other big-name Hollywood stars or Spanish stars. That capsule is going to be a very well-traveled piece of machinery in the next couple of years. It's going to go on tour, we're told. The little town of Copiapó, the center of all this international activity, they really want to hold on to this capsule. They know it's going to be a tourist draw. We'll see what happens there, but, people are already getting a chance to try it out, see if they would have fit in the capsule. Brooke, as you know, is a really tight fit.
We made a little mock capsule here, and we got a little poke fun of. But we were just trying to understand, what in the world it would be like for these miners to be in that thing going through to freedom.
Until you see it, and I think the first time they unveiled it and I saw it, I thought, that's a really tight squeeze. And some of these men lost 20 pounds to be able to fit in that capsule. If there's ever been a good incentive to be on a diet,
that was it. And we have, there's this whole idea, another story that wasn't told, about a secret room that you worked and worked as a good reporter would to try to get access. To explain what the secret room was is in the back of the mine. Stand by. That's the tease. We'll be right back.
I'm a pretty big...
If you're just joining me, I got a pretty special guest here, APJ, all-platform journalist Patrick Oppmann. What APJ basically means you're flying solo, you're shooting the video, you're in front of the camera, you're writing your stuff. You're the Renaissance man, sir. He got back from Chile. You were there 43 days, thus the tan. He got back yesterday, and I want to pick up with where we left off, the idea of this secret room that nobody really knew about.
This was such a fascinating part of the story. And when we first kind of heard about it, because it's not something the government really advertised too much, and they certainly didn't want journalists getting into that room. And this was a place that family members could go in and speak live, just like we're talking now, with their beloved miners some 2,300 feet down below. They put a line down there.
So here's the video.
This is Frank. And so we got this video because the families, they gave us this little flip cam right there.
Let's take a look at this, Robert. Ta-da, flip cams, this little camera.
And
this is what you handed out.
And we didn't have access to the room, and I had this dream and worked through all levels of government, from the mining minister, the president's office, anybody who would listen to me about how this would be like interviewing Neil Armstrong on the moon live.
It's a perfect example, perfect parallel.
To sit down and talk to a miner, they're trapped, talk about what they're experiencing, what they're feeling. And I think we were getting kind of close. Those last few hurdles, you know how close it is.
Yep.
And then they had the breakthrough, and they said, they're going to be out in a couple days. It's not happening. But we did have a lot of talks, and for the family members, you know, it was an incredible reassurance. They could go and look at their family members of miners so close, but of course, still so far away.
I had no idea they could actually talk to them and see them. I had no idea until now. The other issue, when you bring up the flip cam, you had, and I remember you were live when the horns went off, when the Plan B drill hit through, that major miraculous moment. Talk to me about that.
It was certainly one of the more amazing moments of my life, and for the family members, it was really the first domino that fell that led to the rescue of their loved ones. And we'd met with Brandon Fisher, one of the Plan B drillers. I know you know well. And the night before, and he'd said, "I don't know if we're going to make it. We're only 40 meters away. It's still touch and go." He was really nervous, which made me really nervous because I know the families were getting geared up. They're planning to celebrate.
There's the moment. You can almost
And again, we asked to be there when it happened. We couldn't get there. They were so restrictive in their access. And yet Julie Fisher, the wife of Brandon Fisher, another driller, she took this camera, shot this great video.
Let's listen for a moment. Let's listen to the horn. I mean, this is the kind of stuff that you couldn't get. So you had to hand off the flip camera. You made friends, as a good reporter does, and you got this unbelievable access, jumping up and down. I mean, these guys you were eating it, living it, breathing it. You all wanted to see it have a happy ending. And
as did they. These guys, the rescue workers, some of them from around the world, they dedicated their lives, the weeks of their lives to this operation. And they just launched it. Here, professionals, all they do is drill. Do you think they celebrate every time they drill a hole? Absolutely not. And they went nuts. They celebrated more than some of the family members did, actually, who were kind of in shock. And then they went back to work, and they got the job done. And obviously, the family members will be forever in their debt for that.
And when they got the job done, were you at the plaza? That's where you were with the thousands and thousands. I mean, talk to me about the Chilean pride, that the families, all of them coming together. What was that like, being there? It's one thing to see on TV.
It's a mining community, and it's a mining town we were in, and we got down to the plaza. It was still sort of empty. We knew the rescue. There was a big screen up in the end of the plaza, and then in this dark night, we started seeing down these streets, these little tiny streets leading into the plaza, very old plaza, just filled with people. And they got in there, and they were loud, and they were excited, and then it got very, very silent as we got to that first rescue of Florencio Avalos. And then when they pulled him to the top, the crowd went insane. I've never covered anything like that. It was electrifying. And that played out again and again in the hours to come. People never left the plaza. They were up all night long. We were broadcasting in the middle of a sea of people. Nobody touched our equipment. People were wonderful, hugging us, kissing us. It was just one of the best parties I've ever been doing.
It's the kind of story where, as a reporter, we all try to have our reporter hats, but you get involved, and you're thrilled with everyone else that it had a happy ending. And one other question, I was asking you earlier, and let's go to Twitter, I was wondering if anyone at any point in time thought, gosh, we're not going to get all these guys out. So here's this question. I heard the families never gave up hope. Was there always a sense that it would end well, or did fatalism set in?
It was touch and go. The government said from the very beginning that a success would only be judged if 33 men came out. I know from talking to some of these families, they said, even if my miner gets out, if anybody else is hurt or dies, we'll be crushed. We've become one family, and it was really sort of an all or nothing moment. And for me as well, every time they came up, yeah, we're a journalist, but you're also a human being, and you've got your heart in your throat. and to get to meet some of these men afterwards, get to shake their hands, hear their stories, it's been a privilege for me.
And I think it also speaks to the families of these miners who now are close personal friends of yours. You're going to have a beach house in Viña del Mar forever, Patrick Oppmann. I mean, talk to me about, now you're back, but you'll always have a connection with Chile. This goes beyond the story.
It does, and certainly, living a story like this where you're up at the camp, you're spending 24 hours a day for weeks up at the camp, sleeping in tents sometimes, sleeping in...
The last week not having, what, water?
Water, it was a big story, and you're there fronting it, but you also haven't taken a shower in a couple of days. Yeah. But again, that's the conditions the families lived in for much longer than we did, and they saw that we were suffering with them to get the story, and they respected that. And when it all happened, they said, we're going to arrange some time. We want to see you again, and I'll go back to Chile, and I'll be friends with some of these people probably for the rest of my life.
Thank you, Patrick Oppmann. Bravo, and thank you for my flag. Real quickly, this is the flag, right? That you brought back. That they all were waving in the plaza. That was one of the many, and people gave those to us to bring back here and pass on this legend of the 33, Los 33. Los 33. Gracias.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Awesome job. All right, take a look at this.
Oh, he's jumping on the cop car.